Hey folks, Alan Mandic, the HotRodHippie here. Today's video is a three-way product comparison of half horsepower die grinders. So the three die grinders we're going to be comparing today are a Snapon PT210A, a Sunex SX5206, and an Aircat 6255. These are all half horsepower die grinders with composite bodies, rear exit exhaust, and they accept your 1/4-inch collet design tools. So most of your standard tooling you're going to use in a shop will fit into these nicely. They all have the 1/4-inch MBT air fitting, variable speed triggers, all the things you would expect from a good quality die grinder. They do, however, vary in some different ways. RPM wise, the Snapon goes up to 23,000 RPM, the Sunex only up to 18,000, and the Aircat to 20,000 RPM. The Snapon and the Sunex both have built-in variable regulators that you can adjust to go ahead and dial in your power for whatever use you're using. However, the Aircat does not have an adjustable regulator. As far as weight is concerned, the Snapon weighs in at 1.4 pounds, the Sunex at 1.5 pounds, and the Aircat, being the slimmest, weighs in at 1.1 pounds. So overall, they're not too heavy and they work really nicely in your hand. The Snapon is 6.4 inches long, the Sunex and the Aircat are both 7 inches long, so the Snapon may have a slight advantage fitting into tighter spaces in that regard. So next spec I'm going to mention is head height. That means from the back of the head to the end of the collet without any tooling installed. The Sunex and the Aircat both came in at 3 inches. The Snapon came in slightly taller at 3.14, so just over 1/8 of an inch taller than the other two. Another important specification is decibel level. A lot of people are concerned about noise level nowadays, so I should go ahead and test that and tell you what it put out. I did use my decibel meter. I set these all to 90 psi on the wall regulator and tested them out to see how much sound they were putting out. The Aircat hangs its hat on being quiet, and they even gave me a specification at 82 decibels. The other two didn't give me any specs, so I had to test it myself. When I tested it, I found that the Aircat actually came in at 89.6 decibels, a fair bit louder than they rated it at. So I was a little surprised by that. The Sunex, with the regulator turned all the way down, came in at 86.1 decibels. With its regulator turned all the way up, it came in at 91.4 decibels. So it was actually quieter than the Aircat and a little bit louder depending on where the power level was set. The Snapon came in with the regulator turned all the way down at 83.9 decibels, and with it turned all the way up at 97 decibels. So it was the loudest, but also the quietest depending on where you had it set. The next specs we should discuss is country of origin, warranty, and price. These are pretty important things to a lot of people, so I need to discuss them. Two of these are imports and one of them is made in America. The Snapon, of course, is the one that's made in the USA. The other two are made in China and Taiwan, respectively. As far as warranty is concerned, the Aircat and the Sunex have 2-year warranties, and the Snapon has a 1-year warranty. A lot of the mobile tool distributors really haven't kept up with updating their warranties to match that of some of the other companies out there. They have with their impact guns, but not with their die grinders, their cutoff wheels, things like that. And this is one of those situations. So the last thing we should discuss is price. Price varies quite a bit on these, so we really need to mention that because if you're on a budget, you may really take this into account. The Snapon is the top. It is at $329.95. That is MSRP. That's what it's going to cost you if you buy it off their website. I didn't pay that. I bought it on a sale from my tool distributor, so I got it for a little bit less than that. Those sales are always going on. Check with your local distributor, find out how much they want for it. The other two, I found various prices online depending on where you wanted to look at getting it. They went anywhere from about $60 to $100 depending on where you're buying it from, whether it had free shipping, things like that. I found them more expensive than that, but the range seemed to be much more in the $60 to $100 range. The ones over it seemed to be flukes. So I'm going to stick with those specs. Next, we're going to discuss what I really think of these. I've been using them around the shop for all kinds of different grinding and cleaning jobs, and I want to let you know what I really feel about them in use. I've put them in all kinds of stressful situations and seen how they fared, so I need to impart that to you. I'm not doing a straight up head-to-head shootout video here with them all grinding down the same bolt or anything like that, because I found that as they're all rated at half horsepower, they really do feel to be pretty equal playing field as far as overall power is concerned, and that is nice. It was good to see that none of them really lagged behind power-wise compared to the others. So let's start off our breakdown by discussing the Aircat. The Aircat is the slimmest and the lightest of these, and overall, it works pretty well. It's strong, it's got a nice speed to it, but it has a really glaring negative to it, and that is the trigger. The trigger on that one is just kind of terrible when compared to the other two. It has the shortest trigger throw, and trying to hold it at anything other than wide open just did not work out nicely for me. Trying to hold my hand in the half throttle position was very uncomfortable. I couldn't vary much at all without changing the speed significantly, so it really was an issue. I basically found that if I'm not using it at wide open throttle, I didn't want to be using the Aircat at all. The exhaust exits out the back as I expected to, and that's nice, but it was over 7 decibels louder than Aircat claimed it was supposed to be. So for me, that was a bit of a negative. It was by no means the quietest among these. At full wide open speed, using the full power, yes, it was the quietest, and that might be the position you're going to use it in most of the time since the way the trigger is, but the Sunex was only 1.4 decibels louder than the Aircat was, so that's not that big of a difference. Next up, let's discuss the Sunex. The Sunex honestly impressed me the most here. I had the lowest expectations for it, and they were greatly eclipsed. It weighs the most and has the biggest body, but it's comfortable to use, and I did not notice that added weight at all. It's only 0.1 pound more than the Snapon, only 0.4 pound more than the Aircat. The trigger on that one is great. The Sunex works nicely. I can vary the trigger really well to control the RPM of my tooling, and while it only spins up to 18,000 RPMs, I never found that to be an issue. The regulator is also really nice on the Sunex. It's actually probably the nicest regulator here as far as using it is concerned. The regulator is easy to adjust because it has a nice large thumb wheel on it you can get to easily, even if you have gloves on. It doesn't move so easily that you bump it by accident, and that's really nice. That's great to see that I'm not worried about bumping it all the time and moving it around. I put it somewhere, it's going to stay there, and that's great. It does have the rear exit exhaust, and I was pretty impressed by how quiet it was even at wide open power, only 1.4 decibels louder than the Aircat, which hangs its hat on being a quiet tool. One more important thing to mention on the Sunex is the throat depth of the collet. I found that when I was using it, while it has the shallow 3-inch head same as the Aircat, the throat depth on the collet isn't quite as deep as the other two, so I couldn't get my tooling as far in there as I could with the others. I could easily cut down my tooling, make it fit in there better. I just haven't done that yet because I want a straight up out of the box comparison, and that's what I've noticed, is that the Sunex just doesn't fit tooling quite as far in, so it won't fit as tight of places out of the box. Lastly, let's discuss the Snapon. The Snapon is the best quality among these. The trigger on it is simply the best. It's the easiest to vary, it's the easiest to control how I want to. It really works out well. It is superior to the Sunex's throttle, but not by a large margin. The regulator on the Snapon is also really nice. You turn it all the way down, it's the quietest tool on this comparison. That was really great to see. If I'm using it in a situation where I don't need all the power, I can dial it down, have a really nice quiet tool even at wide open throttle. Cranked all the way up, it is the loudest tool here, so when you're putting that full power out, it is a little bit more of a screamer than the other two. However, something important to note there is the regulator has the widest range of adjustment between these. While the Sunex has an adjustable regulator, they only list it as having 6 adjustment points. I found that you can adjust it how you want, but the Snap-on has a finer adjustment range. It goes farther from a lower to a higher setting, at least as far as I felt using the tool. So that was nice to have that greater range of use. A negative about the regulator on the Snap-on is that it's inset into the body, meaning that I need to use a screwdriver to adjust it. So if I'm working and I'm bouncing back and forth between tooling, I want to change the regulator quick, I need to have a flathead screwdriver on hand to change that. That's a little bit annoying. I understand it's probably so you're not bumping the regulator, but like I said, the Sunex has a nice regulator that I don't end up bumping, so the Snap-on could probably have something similar to that. An important spec that the Snap-on has that the other two don't is an adjustable exhaust shield, meaning I can point the exhaust any direction I want 360 degrees away from the tool. So if it's blowing right in my eyes, it's blowing right on the dust that I'm creating, I can control that and I can direct it somewhere else. I can't do that with the other two tools, so that's pretty nice. The Snap-on does lack in that it only has that 1-year warranty, and its biggest failing point is the $329 price tag. you could buy 4 of the other guys for the price of just 1 of the Snapon. And that's a pretty big difference to a lot of people. So now I'm going to discuss each tool individually. Let's go ahead and tell you what I really think of these stacked up against each other. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised with what I said. I don't recommend the Aircat. I just don't care for it. Yes, it's strong. It's not a bad tool, but when I compared it to these other two, it just didn't stack up. Didn't have some of the features that they did. It's not as easy to use. It's just not as good of a tool, in my opinion, at least in overall use. The Sunex truly impressed me. It was nice to see that it had all the features I wanted, had plenty of power, good adjustable throttle, and at a really good budget price. For a do-it-yourselfer or even professional who wants to have a handful of die grinders, I personally switch die grinders rather than switch tooling. I'll have a couple of them set up so I can just bounce back and forth and not have to spend all day changing tooling. So a couple of the Sunexes will work out really well for me. Overall, I would say that is the best bang for the buck tool here. Not only do you get the 2-year warranty, the adjustable regulator, and the nice variable throttle, you got the nice half horsepower power there. The Snapon is the best quality among these. I was truly impressed with it as far as the throttle is concerned, the overall power, the range of the regulator. It is just the best tool here, but you're gonna pay for it. You are getting an American-made product, so if you want to support US businesses, well, that's the one you're gonna wanna go with. You're just gonna be paying the premium for it. Makes sense, but for a lot of people that can be a bit of an issue. I would say if you're a professional, you're grinding all day, every day, the Snapon is probably your best bet. Even though it only has a 1-year warranty, hopefully your distributor will take care of you pretty well if you have any issues within that time or outside of that time. I would really like to see Snapon bump up that warranty, but I don't know if that's gonna happen anytime soon. It just worked out the best for me overall. If it was me, and honestly what I do, is get one of the Snap-ons and get a couple of the Sunexes to use underneath of it, either as backups or for your different tooling. But if you're a do-it-yourselfer or you just don't want to shell out all the money for the Snap-on, the Sunex is a seriously good contender. I really recommend that tool. And honestly, it's very close to eking out the Snap-on as far as just overall how much I like it. So folks, that's the video, that's the comparison. Like I said, the Sunex, best bang for your buck. The Snap-on, the best overall quality. So, if you like this video, if you found it informative, drop this video a like. Let me know in the comments down below what one you prefer. Do you like one of these die grinders? Do you have a different half horsepower die grinder you like better that you think I should check out? Go ahead and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, more product reviews, tips and tricks, things around the shop. There's all kinds of videos up there already and there's more coming. Thanks for coming around, folks. Have a good day.